Welcome to Daily Meditation with Sangha Live.
Very warm welcome to everyone into this lovely space that we have here together to practice together. Welcome to Sangha Live. If you weren't here yesterday, I can just say by way of introduction that I'm Nathan Glyde. I'm guiding the sessions this week. And if you haven't ever been here before, really feel invited to say hello in the warm and welcoming chat that we have here. So if you don't see it already, there's a button at the bottom of your screen that you can click there and open up the chat, and you'll see lots of lovely messages. It's really lovely that people make the effort to share through there, and if you haven't already, really feel invited to put your hellos and good mornings and good whatever time of day it is for you there. So this week we are exploring this idea we might call wise acceptance. And I'm going to share a little bit about that for today's practice, and then we'll have a nice period of practice together, and then I'll open up to any kind of questions. So maybe some of you have been practicing a little bit with what I shared yesterday. You may have some questions about what I shared today, or you might just have some general reflections about your practice. And all of that is, of course, very, very welcome. The main point today is that acceptance and leaving things as they already are, actually, they don't equate to each other. They're not the same thing. Acceptance changes how things are. And I want to use quite a quite perhaps well-known teaching framework to explore this, and that is the hindrances. So many of you will know about these hindrances, or we might say the so-called hindrances, because they both can hold us back, but they can also show us the next steps. Yeah, they can also be opportunities or invitations, doorways to freedom, actually, even. Yeah. But at the time that they appear, and at the time that we invest in them, they are dukkha. They are expressions of stress and distress and suffering. So the Buddha and lots of wise beings' teachings, but particularly the Buddha, would say, I teach freedom from dukkha. And so noticing, there's some kind of hindrance here, and there's something I can do about that. So hindrances happen. I mean, we can just say that. It's like, it's like this right now. And they should. We should be hindered unless we're awakened. Okay, so if we don't think that we're absolutely awakened, then we should accept that they will happen. Right? That would be a use of wise acceptance. Hindrances happen. I accept that. Well, what the Buddha would say is also, we don't accept that they're going to stay. And interestingly enough, a certain degree of acceptance allows them to go, sooner. And hopefully that's an invitation as we move through the week to actually say, let's even be more radical. I accept that they're here, and also I'm going to start changing things, because there's no way of keeping things the same once you start accepting that they're here. Okay, so that's the kind of the point that we'll get to. So hopefully that's not too confusing a thing to say at 7 a.m, or whatever time in the day it is for you. So what are these hindrances? Yeah, briefly, just to cover it. I'm not going to go in depth about it or give lots of different ways of working with this. We're only going to be using the principle of acceptance today. Yeah. So there is a degree of greed or aversion happening right now. Greed pulling towards, pushing away, happening right now. It might be too subtle to notice. Okay. But at least when it's noticeable, can we accept it is here? But we might even be able to accept it must be here. It must be here, even if I can't notice it. Okay, so that degree of acceptance that we can play with will vary between us, but some degree of acceptance. I'm a bit greedy. I'm a bit aversive. We'll particularly notice it in the thinking patterns when we're practicing. And when we come out of a distraction, we can just ask ourselves, was that greedy? Or was that a bit aversive? What was going on in that story? Right? What was in terms of our experience there? Another element of the experience we could call a hindrance, and is called a hindrance, is there's some degree of restlessness. Restless. I want to get up, I want to go, I want to move. I've got more energy than this practice supports or this moment allows for. I can't stay with this. I want to get through, get out, get away. Or there's some degree of dullness, kind of flatness, a bit bleh, yeah. And although these can sound like, real life energies, they're kind of energies in the heart and the mind. Okay. So it's not a feeling of vitality in the restlessness, it's actually agitation there. And in the dullness, it's not sleepiness, tiredness, the natural urge to, it's not like, oh, that's a problem. That's a hindrance. That's more a sense, I need to go and sleep. But when that same tiredness appears, when we're trying to pay subtle attention to breaths and sounds and present experience, we can see, oh, it just appeared then. Otherwise, I was quite vibrant and energetic. So the dullness, again, it has a rejection in it. And again, it has a range. Sometimes it's unignorable. I'm incredibly restless, yeah. Or I'm so dull, my brain's like syrup, But can we accept it as here? Okay, now with these four features, this greed, this aversion, this restlessness, this dullness, can you notice there's a lack of acceptance of experience in them? Yeah. Lack of experience of acceptance in them. So what's going to happen if we bring acceptance to them, or even like through our experience to our experience? It's going to be different. It's going to change things. Okay, and this brings us on to the fifth hindrance. There is typically a lack of confidence in our capacity to change things for the better. Yeah, and so we might have a degree of acceptance which actually goes along with it. And it's like, oh, there's nothing I can do. Right, and that's not the kind of acceptance we're talking about. So remember, this quality of mindfulness, the sati. Remember that you can inhabit your intentions a little bit more right now. So yesterday we started off like, what are you here for? What are you practicing? What's going on? What's the direction of movement? What brings you here? What do you want to see more of? Yeah, those questions of intentions. Lovely to start with those. If you weren't here yesterday, just give a thought to that a moment. What do you wish to support? If you have thought about it, and keep that same intention through the week. Oh yeah, that's what I need. So when we find that there's a hindrance, or even if we intuit, just sense there's a hindrance here, it starts with acceptance. And depending on how much acceptance we bring, the practice might just be about acceptance. Oh, I'm going to accept this much. I'm going to accept it more. Okay? So when we typically talk about accepting things as they are, or accepting things as they're arising or coming into being, we can miss how radical that is, how unexpected it is that it makes such a big difference. The Buddha talks about dependencies a lot in the teachings, the Four Noble Truths. There's a teaching of dependencies. What's this dukkha experience, the first truth, depending on the second truth? And what if we don't do that, the third truth? It fades the dukkha, fades the clinging, the craving, the demanding. And then the fourth is that, there's a path here that depends on that, right? So it's all these dependency things. what we don't tend to see is how things are appearing to our heart mind changes on how much or how little we accept them as they are appearing. And that when we bring that in, they change. Yeah. And then when they've changed, we kind of imagine, oh, that's how they were already. Right? This previously unaccepted something is now changed by the more acceptance. And that's what the teaching is saying. Like, look for the effect that you have. So if it is changed by this much acceptance, how much more might it be changed if we really welcome it? Yeah, welcome it in with open arms. More change. More change. Then how much acceptance reveals things as they really are? If they're impacted by the degree of acceptance, and we can play a part in bringing in more or less acceptance, that whole idea of, well, be with things as they are doesn't stand up, does it? Doesn't stand up. And yet that's what acceptance sounds like it's doing. So the heart mind, the condition of the heart mind, the attitude in the heart mind plays an incredibly important part in every practice we do. And acceptance doesn't reveal how things are themselves, but how they appear when there's this much acceptance. So that key dependency in the teachings, the atmosphere of attention, shapes, forms, displays what is going to appear. When we bring our mindful attention, there's a kind of kindness there. When we bring more acceptance, there's even more of this sense of kindness. And kindness transforms situations. And that's true interpersonally. Yeah. More kindness into this situation, particularly when there's a situation that's lacking in kindness. When someone comes in with that sense of kindness, non-reactivity, someone meets them with agitation, irritation, whatever, and they're able to say something kind that really understands that this irritation is not personal. Hindrances, they're not personal. Greed, aversion, restlessness, dullness, they happen to all of us. They're universal, not personal. It's not against you. And then when we compare greed to kindness or aversion to kindness, do we see how radical a move acceptance is right there? How transformative that is. And so when it comes to the hindrances, and they will come to some degree. We're restless or we're dull right now. To some degree, we're pushing away, aversive, or we're pulling towards, greedy about something. Greed and aversion, is there little, the littlest amount, or is it even noticeable, the amount of acceptance there? When we reject this experience, I don't want to be greedy or aversive, we're actually kind of aversive. Yeah. And when we accept, we're not passive. In fact, we're not playing along. And we're beginning to deconstruct, dissolve, resolve, release. So let's play with our creative acceptance and bring this into a meditation together. Having a breath, having a moment to just decide what posture should I practice in? What would support what we're developing here? And settling into that bodily shape, and just finding a sense of alignment, checking if we can just roll around, open up, settle in. Sometimes, tightness can develop in the body, and we can mindfully move as we move into the posture. And we begin with a little bit of this 3 breaths, or the equivalent with the sounds, settling into the mindful presence. And doing this as a way of becoming familiar with our practice. First, let's just check in with that posture. If you feel the spine, the lowest part of the spine, feel how that's connected down to the pelvis, to the hips. And just letting that roll forwards. If you can, having the hips higher than the knees, that allows the belly then to open. And sit on more cushions if that's needed. Bring the feet to the knees nicely stable. And then we'll come up through that spine, allowing the spine to open. And feeling it connected to the chest. Letting the chest open, come forward, shoulders maybe just roll back. And then all the way up the spine into the head. Elongating that spine. Maybe tucking the chin, balancing the head over the body. And then we just relax all the muscles of the body if we can, allowing that central axis of the spine to support this posture. And this should feel kind of opening, whether we're sitting, reclining, standing. Just checking if we want to lean a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, microscopic movements, just to find that inner sense of balance. Sometimes we have a habit of leaning forwards, so just leaning back a little bit. Help us find maybe an inner sense of alignment. And and just settling there, come into contact with breathing. If it's helpful, we can imagine that the breath is led by the diaphragm. It's not something we squeeze and suck through the nose. It's guided in by this big, strong muscle. We can accept the breath as it's guided in. And not making it too difficult. Pay attention where the breath feels most obvious and relatively enjoyable to attend to. So that might be the rise and fall of the chest, the warmth and the coolness at the nostrils, play in the belly, or the diaphragm itself. And of course, if the body doesn't feel like the right place for us right now, we can practice with the sounds coming and going. And starting off again, 3 breaths. The next 3 breaths, to see if you can notice at least just the beginning moments of the breath. Let the rest of the breath happen by itself. If you attend or not, it's fine. And after attending to the breath, making sure that we rest, relax, soften the face. And once we feel like this has been relaxed, we can come again, another 3 breaths, and slowly just increasing the amount of attention you bring to the inhalation until you reach the full length of that. Just the inhalation for now. In your own time, resting and returning again, just the inhalation, 3 breaths. So if the mind wanders away, which it can, and it's not something we forbid, but it's actually something we practice with in slow motion. So we want to become a little familiar. Ah, you went over there. And today we can just introduce a little question. Was that greedy or was that aversive? Was that about getting or about getting rid of? Might have just a clear sense, might not. No, don't know. Okay, fine. Let's come back, rest, relax the face, the belly, the shoulders, the hands. Anywhere else you feel tightness building up. And let's pay attention to the beginnings of an exhalation for the next 3 breaths. Mind follows the rest of the breath, that's fine. If it doesn't, that's fine. So in your own time, remembering to rest, relax, soften. Keep doing that for as long as that's what's the main needed part of the practice. And then coming in, another 3 breaths. Right? Just following that own rhythm yourself. Maybe we'll continue together, get all the way to the fullness of the exhalation. So it's like this right now. That might mean for some of us we're away in our thoughts. Notice that greedy thought, aversive thought. It's not outside the realm of possibility that it was a beautiful, generous, grateful, appreciative, loving thought. It's not outside the possibilities. It's quite common that they have more, oh, I want to get this, I want to get rid of that, shouldn't have done this, why are they like that? There's a certain aversion, non-acceptance of self or other. Oh yeah, that happens. We accept that it happens, but we don't carry on. That's not leading to well-being. So release that. Additionally, we might notice in any moment there can be felt to be too little energy, a bit dull, or too much energy, a bit restless. What would be a wise response? So one way we can meet that is this kind of 9 breaths model where we incline more towards in breaths when we need a bit more energy. Now out breaths when we need to release a bit of energy, open the space a little bit, soften, dissolve. And then the third round, we're balancing those energies, and it doesn't have to be equal. So we take too little energy or too much energy and bring it towards a vibrant tranquility. Has the vibrancy of the lots of energy and has the tranquility of the little energy come together, harmonizing through the breath, or through the way we listen. Having those gaps between 3, 9 breaths where we soften the face, soften the belly, but don't drift away. It's like this right now. We accept, we practice in slow motion. Don't run away from the experience. It's like this right now. It might be uncomfortable, it might be wonderful. We might feel seriously distracted, we might feel incredibly present. Whatever, it's like this right now. Letting that in. In a sense, we accept, we allow that to be that way. Oh, there's too little energy, there's too much, I'm too greedy, too aversive. Yeah, okay. Notice how that changes it. Notice how much space we can give to this, how much kindness we can bring. Explore how it changes what seems solid, absorbing, maybe becomes less substantial, more easy to step outside of and be aware of, thanks to the degree of acceptance. How much acceptance shall we bring here? You can explore really welcoming, or if the experience feels dull, a bit boring, I want to get more dull, more bored. What's that like? Flip it. More acceptance, radical welcoming. We're just coming back to the intimacy in the breathing, these 9 breaths model, really prioritizing the sensitivity, being in the breath, not just observing it, being in the vibration of the sounds, not just listening to it. It's like this right now. It's like this right now. And as we recognize how it is in slow motion, not rushing to have another experience, allowing the acceptance, the allowing to actually shape how much space, how much kindness can come to this experience and actually create a more spacious and kind experience. The acceptance changes everything, at least a little bit. Recognizing in the last minute now what you've cultivated, how it feels in the body, heart, mind. And if this feels beneficial, maybe we can keep it going, keep it growing. If it aligns with our intentions, maybe we can remember, recall this way of practicing through the day. So in slow motion, if you wish, we'll transition from this form of the practice into this community space. Thank you for your practice, your presence here. It's certainly a precious.
Today's podcast is an offering to you from our archive of freely available live daily classes. We make wisdom teachings and meditations as freely available as possible to as many people as wish to practice. You can help ensure we can continue to support a worldwide Sangha by leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts, by sharing this with someone who'd be interested, and by offering a small financial support at sangha.live/donate.